Even though the name of this Alanis song is ironic, the situation these words are describing is hardly that. Maybe unfortunate planning at best. But you know what is ironic? Airbnb, the same company that spent years being blamed for over tourism, housing shortages, neighborhood disruption, is now turning the tables. Airbnb is borrowing straight from the hotel lobby's old playbook: political campaigns, economic reports, regulatory framing. The very tactics once used to undermine Airbnb are now being used by Airbnb to say, hey, maybe it's the hotels that are the problem. And this shift in tone is what we're unpacking today. Hi, I'm Uvika from Rental Scale Up by Price Labs. We cover real short-term rental news, strategy, and analysis for professional property managers. No hype, no fluff, just what actually helps you run your business better. So let's get into it. What is it that has actually changed? Let's start there. For years, Airbnb has taken the hit. Critics have said, you're fueling over tourism, you're hollowing out neighborhoods, you're pushing out locals. And Airbnb has taken the soft approach to oversimplify this. It's talked about hosts and community and belonging. But lately, something is different. Tone is sharper. Now, Airbnb is pointing the finger back, not at residents, not at cities, at hotels. Airbnb is saying, look at the numbers. Hotels are driving the bulk of tourism pressure, not short term rentals. In their recent EU report, they led with this stat: hotels make up over 75% of tourist nights in the top 10 EU cities. In cities like Amsterdam and Barcelona, where short term rental restrictions are tight, tourism didn't slow down, it grew. And you know what did grow with it? Hotel construction. And that's not the only point this report is making either. It also poses the question: look at what's actually bringing in the crowds. Budget airlines, cruises, expanding airports. These are massive tourism engines. Short term rentals are just one piece of that. So now Airbnb is flipping the question entirely. Why are short term rentals the only thing we're regulating when the rest of the industry keeps expanding too? And that pivot is not just about changing public opinion either. It's a calculated attempt to shift regulatory pressure off of platforms like Airbnb and onto their legacy rivals, hotels. Let's take a closer look at Europe, because this is where the pressure is building. Barcelona has committed to revoking all short-term rental licenses by 2028. In parallel, Spain has ordered over 66,000 listings to be delisted from Airbnb, listings that were found to be in breach of accommodation regulations. Athens has recently extended its ban on new short-term rental licenses in central districts until at least 2026. And just in these past few days, protests have also erupted in Spain, Italy, and Portugal. In Barcelona and Mallorca, for example, demonstrators took to the streets, some wielding water guns aimed at tourists as a symbol of frustration. Airbnb released their EU Overtourism report just ahead of the protests, timing that suggests they anticipated the backlash and wanted to frame the conversation early. A company commissioned study that, while detailed, naturally reflects Airbnb's own strategic perspective. The timing was no coincidence. The message was clear, and CEO Brian Chesky said it plainly in an interview with German outlet Welt. Short-term rentals are being used as a convenient scapegoat for broader tourism challenges. The report points to three key ideas. First, hotels still dominate tourist stays. In fact, across the top 10 EU cities, hotels account for more than 75% of all tourist nights. Second, tourism continues to grow even in places that have clamped down on short-term rentals. The report cites cities like Amsterdam and Barcelona, where restrictions on short-term rentals have intensified in recent years, but where tourism volumes have nonetheless increased. And third, it argues that infrastructure like expanded flight routes, growing cruise traffic, and increased airport capacity is what's truly driving mass tourism. Short-term rentals, the report suggests, are responding to demand, not generating it. The argument is that you can restrict Airbnb all you want, but visitors are still coming, and they'll stay somewhere, most likely in hotels. Now, here's the tricky part. Even if that data is solid, it's not necessarily changing public perception, because this isn't just about visitor numbers, it's about meaning. To many locals, short-term rentals aren't just a booking option, they're a symbol of gentrification, foreign ownership, the loss of local life. So while Airbnb is trying to fight fire with facts, the opposition is operating with emotion. And in politics, emotions almost always win. TUI's political director, Alexander Panchuk, didn't hold back either. He directly challenged Airbnb's argument, saying it's short-term rentals and not hotels that are fueling over tourism in hotspots like Venice, Barcelona, and Santorini. So the battle lines are clear, and both sides are getting louder. Let's head over to the US, where Airbnb is testing a different, arguably bolder playbook. In early 2025, Airbnb launched a Super PAC in New York City. We've done a video about this recently. It's called Affordable New York, and they've pledged $5 million to support candidates who are more favorable to short-term rentals and to challenge those those who aren't. This is a shift from lobbying behind closed doors. Now, this is more about direct electoral influence. At the same time, Airbnb released a US economic impact study, the headline of which was that Airbnb contributed $90 billion to the US economy. And for the first time, the framing didn't just celebrate hosts or local spending, it went after hotels. The report argued that restricting short term rentals doesn't fix anything, it just funnels bookings and revenue back to traditional hotels. So, what we're seeing here is a more assertive, unapologetic version of Airbnb, one that's not just trying to earn goodwill, but to shape the playing field. But here too, the strategy comes with questions, because while the political investment may give Airbnb more say in how short term rentals are regulated, it also puts them squarely in the spotlight, alongside all the scrutiny that comes with it. And for professional managers like you, the key question is, does Airbnb's growing political muscle actually serve your interests or just theirs? Because here's the risk. When Airbnb speaks for hosts, it doesn't always mean professional property managers. Their lobbying efforts may prioritize individual homeowners or casual hosts, the same kind that platforms highlight in ads and political messaging. So, if regulation does shift in Airbnb's favor, it may not necessarily protect your operating model, your scale, or your compliance costs. Worse, if public backlash grows, especially in cities with intense housing pressure, it's often professional operators that get painted with the broadest brush. So, yes, Airbnb's assertiveness might open doors, but it could also bring heat, and the benefits might not be distributed evenly. And that leads to a deeper question, one that's not even about politics or policy, but about identity. Because how Airbnb is perceived by regulators, residents, and the media can directly affect how you're perceived, especially if your business is closely associated with the platform. Let's step back and talk about the bigger picture, because underneath all this data, strategy, and political maneuvering is a question Airbnb hasn't fully answered. Who is it really? Is it still the platform built on community and connection, on hosts who rent out spare rooms, offer local recommendations, and help travelers live like a local? Or is it becoming a global power broker using policy influence, campaign dollars, and data driven PR to defend its turf and scale? Because those two identities don't always coexist easily. It is a very fine balance to maintain. And the further Airbnb leans into its political persona, the harder it becomes to sell the homespun one. Case in point, we know that Airbnb's co-founder Joe Gebbia has been appointed to the Doge Council, a US government advisory group on government efficiency led by Donald Trump. Now, regardless of your politics, it is a very different look from the company's early branding. And for cities already skeptical of Airbnb's influence, this kind of alignment could reinforce the idea that it's a tech giant, less concerned with neighborhoods, more concerned with leverage. For property managers watching all this unfold, it's worth asking, how do you align or distance your own brand from Airbnb's evolving identity? And as Airbnb takes a more aggressive posture, how do you keep your business resilient, local, and trusted, no matter which way the political wind blows? Finally, where does this all leave us? Airbnb is rewriting the playbook, this much is clear. It's gone from defensive press releases to full on political campaigning, from cozy community messaging to billion-dollar economic claims, and from being the one getting blamed to pointing the blame elsewhere. Moves are more strategic, the messaging is a lot sharper, and the stakes are real as ever. Because the narrative that wins on paper, in politics, in public, can shape the rules you have to operate under. If you're a professional property manager, this isn't just an Airbnb story. It's a story about how short term rentals are being defined right now by platforms, by policymakers, and by public sentiment. You don't have to agree with every move Airbnb makes, but you do need to understand the game it's playing, because the rules are changing. And obviously, the better you understand the players, the better you can position yourself, whether that means aligning with the platform or making sure your business stands apart. If you found this helpful, go ahead and subscribe. We break down stories like this every week, covering real short term rental news and strategy for professional managers. And if you want insights like this delivered straight to your inbox, head over to rentalscaleup.com and sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Thanks for watching. I'm Uvika, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.